Welcome to Blue Dirt, the podcast that digs deep into the foundation of commercial real estate investing. Unlike most real estate shows that focus on deal making and market trends, Blue Dirt gets into the nuts and bolts of what truly builds long-term value, the building itself. We break down how to spot deferred maintenance before it costs you, why a solid preventative maintenance program is a game changer, and how triple net leases can maximize your investment returns. We'll also explore the importance of strong landlord-tenant relationships and how they drive stability and growth in your portfolio. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just getting started, Blue Dirt gives you the practical knowledge to make smarter, more profitable decisions in commercial real estate. It's time to get your hands dirty and build value from the ground up. Let's dig in. Welcome to Blue Dirt, where even idiots can make a killing in commercial real estate. Today, we're going to answer the question, why should you maintain great tenant relationships? Donnie?
Create friends.
Yeah, we're here to create friends.
A lot of friends.
And influence people.
Create friends and influence people.
That's right.
I haven't read that book in a while.
Yeah, no, it's a new one.
It's a new one?
That's right. How about this? Simple question. Retention equal returns. If you keep your tenants in place longer, you have less vacancy, which leads to a higher return on investment. In its pure and simple form, you should be great with your tenants anyways. But it is interesting that we do run into a lot of landlords that don't maintain that relationship. They maintain a maybe a more dominant, submissive type relationship, which really we go into our relationships with our tenants as partners, because that's what you truly are. You truly are partners, whether you realize it or not, whether you have, as a landlord, sometimes you put your fear of your risk ahead of the relationship. Mm-hmm. But really, it has to be this symbiotic thing, because you're giving them something that they need. So they need a place to stay. It has to be at a competitive market rate, regardless of your investment. It has to be competitive, or else you're going to maintain a higher level of vacancy. And you need them to help you pay, especially if you have a loan, to pay your mortgage. I like them because of the triple net expenses that the tenants pay. They pay for their pro rata share, if it's a multi-tenant building, of your property taxes, property insurance, and your maintenance. That is such a key factor in driving profitability to your bottom line. So that retention is key.
It really is. It's a business relationship. I mean, when you come at it from that direction, you have your business. Your business is to obviously purchase real estate in this scenario, manage real estate, right? They're trying to run their business out of this. You're fulfilling a need for them, right? They don't, for whatever reason, maybe it's a new business. Maybe they can't qualify for the loan. Maybe they just don't want to buy. Maybe they don't want to be beholden to that because of their growth. So it really is a symbiotic. It's really a full loop relationship where you're both going to benefit if you truly work together like a business relationship.
And so when you have your relationship that's positive, good communication back and forth, when you're leading up to a lease renewal, and by the way, most commercial leases that we deal with are 3 or 5 year leases. We'll do some 10-year leases, which are fewer, and then even fewer will do the occasional 20-year lease. They tend to be with a franchise system that has a long-term lease. I'm thinking Hardee's. With the Hardee's lease, we typically would do a 20-year lease with 4 or 5 year options. A lot of our other QSR, quick service restaurants, they'll do a 10-year lease with 2 5-year options. That's pretty common in the franchise world. And so, but more importantly, when you're leading up to your lease renewal, and I don't care if it's a franchise or just a small 1,000 square foot office space, when you're communicating with your tenants, they're going to be in some different phase of their environment, in their business environment, right? They're either static, meaning that the current space that they have is working just fine. They're either growing, they need a larger space, or they're shrinking, they need a smaller space. But if you maintain that relationship, many times you will know, number one, well in advance, so you can begin to market your space in advance and have a shorter lease up time. you may have the opportunity to put them into another space that you may already own, whether it's
even
large,
in the same building,
even in the same building,
because you may have, a multi-tenant space where they're saying, hey, business hasn't done well. I just need perfect. But if you have a great relationship, you can move those pieces around the board.
You see how he went negative? My tenants would say, my business is going so great, Mr. Landlord, because we have such a great relationship. We need more space. But you see,
it's because I'm a negative person.
Negative.
At the end of the day, I'm just very this yin and yang.
Yes,
I'm a very
yang's up here.
Just rain clouds right above us.
Right. Well, it's more like a battery. I'm the positive. He's the negative charge. So,
sure, I don't maybe,
whatever. So, but either way, especially if you're in that multi-tenant building, we see it a lot, and we see it in advance. Sometimes I'll have a tenant that might have 2 years left on their lease, and whether they're doing great or in Don's world not doing great, maintaining that conversation with them to know in advance, hey, listen, we can move you into a different spot that's more suitable for you. Now, of course, the tenant has their obligations according to the lease, but listen, we're here to make things happen long-term as much as possible. Now, I'm always going to put an asterisk. If we have 300 or 400 tenants, there are going to be 5
to 10, right?
5 to 10 that are going to be very difficult relationships. Inherently, we don't know why.
And then going back to the business, like we're talking about partnership side, it is very challenging to remove yourself from that kind of negative environment, right? Where it may come across as combative.
Actually, I'm going to put a pin in that for a second. Even the most difficult scenarios where a tenant is not performing can be a positive conversation. What makes it negative typically is when the tenant decides to take action of they're going to ignore you, they're going to not communicate. That's when things become hard.
Correct.
A hard situation doesn't have to be a bad circumstance. And we have that with several tenants.
Yep. We
have tenants that are not performing well, but they communicate so effectively, it makes it so easy to work with them.
Correct. And they may be running into those challenges operationally. It could be some other thing that's going on in the market where their just business isn't doing well. And naturally they're going to be trying to take it out on lots of different channels. And you being the landlord, being part of their business, right? Business partner, they're trying to take it out on you. And really, you can't let it happen like that. But like you said, if you just keep a strong communication channel with that individual and kind of listen, you may be able to provide a solution where they can get into that smaller space, ride out the storm, and then they come back around because I'm positive they weathered it. And now they need the whole building. I mean, there's literally scenarios that happen like that, but you have to communicate. You have to work through it and understand that you're both trying to solve the same problem.
It's amazing that when you work with somebody during one of their difficult times, the loyalty that brings to them. And quite honestly, they still know people that need, I live off of referrals and word of mouth. And you help people through a difficult time, providing that, and I'm not saying it always works out, but when you help people during a difficult time and then they make it through, they're your biggest advocate. You didn't leave them high and dry. You didn't try to punish them. But I will tell you, it becomes very difficult not to go the negative route when a tenant puts you on ignore. So if you're a tenant, please recognize that as well. Good open communication is really, really critical.
Because it allows you to problem solve. Right. It's that classic. If you're not open and honest, if you don't get the actual problem, you can't solve it. So if they just go totally ignored, that's where you go into this, more of a defensive mechanism, and you're just trying to get some kind of information out of them. And it never ends up positive for either party. But the open ones, it's amazing how many times a negative situation just evolves into a positive.
So what does a good relationship look like from a landlord tenant? Well, one of the things that I think we do a good job with is our property management services. We have really good communication, especially on the front end, getting that tenant onboarded into the system. Usually in the beginning, that's move-ins are very stressful. They can be rocky, but helping navigate that.
Just like in a house.
That's right.
Even moving into a new house, apartment, whatever, it's always a little stressful.
And if the property manager is responsive to issues, is timely with that also helps that relationship, because the property manager is definitely a reflection on the landlord, because it's the landlord's representative. So if you have a property manager that is not timely getting back with clients, or the client is getting frustrated, then that's on you as well. So you should know how that response time looks like with your property management. And
to that point, even now we've I'll say invested further as a company, that our tenant portal, because we really believe the tenant portal is where we're trying to drive. Our software allows for this tenant portal, and we continue to try to drive more and more individuals into that for a myriad of reasons. The one we're talking about today really is communication of issues, allowing the team to receive issues. And once this information comes into, we're on, communication over and over, we'll talk about, we're receiving that issue. It's getting dispersed amongst the team, getting managed faster. When the issue gets closed out, it automatically sends the tenant a notice that these issues have been rectified. So it shows that we're on top of it. More, you're getting better communication, more communication. And that always especially helps someone ease their mind as they're going, like you said, into that move-in period, which is already has a heightened level of stress.
One of the tenant things that we try to do on maybe a couple times a year is, we do a lot of cookouts and things like that. And we'll tend to invite several of our clients to those cookouts just to break bread. We had purchased an office building, and on our 1 year anniversary, we actually went to the office building, and there's a whole bunch of random different tenants. I think there's 26 office suites in that building. So, we happen to get to 100% occupancy and just send out an email and again, trying to meet them outside of a negotiation, just more in a celebratory, especially when you're the landlord and you're serving them free food, free lunch for them and their employees. That helps build just a little bit of a better relationship outside of the workplace. And you get to meet people and talk with them about their families and what they're enjoying for their hobbies. So just a little bit of a personal touch is helpful. And then we do it, of course, at our office on a more regular basis. Just because that's something that we really enjoy. And then we'll also, in our internal groups, for our own team, is we celebrate them. We in fact, this past week, we went to, we co-sponsor between SVN and Blue Commercial Property Management. We co-sponsor Pensacola FC, which is the Pensacola Football Club. If you're in America, of course, it's soccer. And, we had a great time, probably had about 30 or 40 people show up, and we were just celebrating at a soccer match, and everybody loved it and they can't wait for the next one. So we hope it's part of our culture. We want it to be. That's something that Don and I are very conscientious about. And it's not for everybody. Some people like to celebrate differently. So, today, what are we doing today?
Birthday. Monthly birthday.
That's right. So, we celebrate this month's birthday. It happens to be today.
Yep.
And, we'll
key lime pie.
We get, it's okay. Well,
it's not birthday cake.
Usually it's cake, but today's key lime pie.
He didn't want that.
Okay.
Key lime pie today.
In the month of July, we only have one birthday. So that person got to select what they wanted to serve. And so it'll be a key lime pie.
Unfortunately, my month is 3 or 4 birthdays, so I have to negotiate.
You have to negotiate. Okay. Well, good deal. What month is that?
December.
Okay. Yes. So what else?
I think something that kind of just riding off the wave of the move-in checking back in with tenants, I think is really positive because you get kind of this different energy, talking about the surprise move outs or whether they need more space. I mean, I love going in and being really excited for the tenants that are doing great. It's super exciting. You get in there, you get to talk to them, and it does the same thing. It does the planning, whether it's a bigger space in your building, a bigger space in another one of your buildings, or just helping them find their next home. It's all still a very positive experience. And if you don't go in and check on them, you don't get that. And a lot of times, sometimes it is the negative way, right? You get in there and they're just like, yeah, business is slow. And I love kind of entrepreneurship as a whole. So it's kind of a time for you to get to kind of bounce off some ideas with them of some things that they may do differently. And some of them love it. They really get, because it's their business, it's their passion, right? They're not just doing it for this certain reason. There's a lot of times there is a real love of whatever there is that they're doing. There's, art galleries or clothing boutiques or whatever. So It's really cool.
You're making me think. 2 days ago, I went and showed, so we have a building in downtown and it happens to be 100% leased out. Well, one of our tenants, it's in a building that we own, but one of our tenants needs more space. And I had just listed, it didn't even go live yet, another building that I thought would be suitable for him. And so he and I met over there 2 days ago, showed him the space. He goes, I love it. I want these 2 offices. He has one now. He needed 2. And I said, and he's like, so, and he asked, he goes, you own this building? And I said, no. He goes, well, how is this going to work? You own the other building. And I said, listen, let's not worry about that. I said, I'll let you out of your lease. We'll sign a new lease here. No big deal. It's still within the family. It doesn't mean that I have to own everything. And he happens to be in a space that I'll lease out fairly quickly. But just showing that relationship, that it's not just about my bottom line. It's about the whole portfolio of family of clients that matters. And I was more impressed with him being conscientious about, hold on, how does this work? Right. Because you're gonna actually lose. Yeah. He wins, and I was like, well, if he wins, we all win.
Correct.
And again, it's now it. And let's be honest, I don't do everything because I'm altruistic about everything, but he just happens to be in a space that I know will lease up. If it was in a more difficult area, we might have to slow the train down. We might have to, lease out the other space first and then transition them over. But this happens to be one of those situations that I know it'll lease up quick. So, but doing those things for your clients can really go a long way. And again, I'm a full-time broker. This is what I do every day. So some properties are mine, some properties are not mine. It doesn't really matter. We're going to just always take care of the client. And oddly enough, it always seems to work out.
Yeah, that's
also with relationships. When you have positive relationships with your tenants, it also avoids potential litigation. You typically can work things out when you have a relationship with somebody. If you have zero relationship and then you wanted to work it through attorneys, I'm not a fan of we have too many properties and too many tenants to always try to be litigious. Just because you might be right doesn't mean you win. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying win legally. Yeah, you might be 100% in the right legally, but it takes a lot of energy to sue people and to go through. And I'm not saying it's never the right decision, but it will always be our last resort.
Yeah.
But having that relationship with your tenants goes so much further, and you can really avoid a lot of legal issues if you really just kind of go forward in a friendly manner.
Yeah, I 100%. And I think sometimes, there's definitely times that I feel like I probably wasted my time.
You were 100% what? I want to go in with you 100% on.
Huh? What'd you say? I 100% agree with myself. No, it's that kind of escalation. I think you have to start in some sort of a mutual understanding and try to get down the path together versus, or and sometimes deviating, ratcheting up your pressure, or like you're saying, going straight to litigious, it doesn't give you a lot of moves, in my opinion. You need to really try to go down a lot of different avenues to try to get the results that you want. And I think stepping into the litigious, shoes right away, just, at least in my opinion, doesn't give the party a lot of options. It was like, we're dealing with a group that's not from this country. And I was preparing this thing for the tenant that had moved out. I go, hey, let's send this over to him. And he goes, well, do you think I should contact an attorney? I go, why don't we just see how they respond first? He's like, but in his country, that was much more normal.
Right.
And I was like, I go, do you know what's going to happen if we send an attorney, reviews this, sends them a letter? Immediately what they're going to do, they're going to lawyer up. And then we're stuck in this attorney battle versus hey, we can probably find a pretty amicable solution here without having to go down that road.
Right.
But you never know. It may ultimately go that way. But if you step in there first,
that always remains an option. And I think you articulated it best. Go through every other option first. You have that in your back pocket. You're not going to lose your positioning, and I'm going to say, if we have 100 potential situations where we could lawyer up, it probably results in 3. And by the time we get through everything, we might actually only have to lawyer up 3 times, with maybe only 1 out of that 100, going into a real legal situation. A lot of times we do some saber rattling, and even if they get an attorney, we can typically work it out. And sometimes it's, I prefer it if we get into a situation where you're going head to head. I hope they get an attorney, because a lot of times their attorney will help guide them through the process better. And Correct. So please, I highly encourage you to get an attorney in many cases. That way they can help you through the situation, quite honestly, faster.
Yeah, because there's times it feels like they do that, and then all of a sudden there's a rationale that sets in.
Right.
They're kind of like, yeah, look at how crazy this is. And they're like, the attorney's like, no, that's standard.
Sometimes they'll threaten an attorney and be like, oh yeah, please, here's my number. Just have them call me. But I'm actually being serious. It's not even, please go hire an attorney, because I think you're being completely unreasonable.
Yep.
And at the very least, your attorney at least will be legal.
And we can talk the language.
Yeah.
They'll know, chances are.
We can talk legal. We can talk off the record. We can do whatever you want. But the idea is to get to a resolution that works for all parties. And it doesn't have to be our way or the highway, but it has to be something that we can move forward and resolve. Mm-hmm. And and then another reason for good relationships is we talk about having a positive and good reputation. Well, the opposite of that is a negative and bad reputation. And, tenants have options where they can go and put their business. Mm-hmm. You may not be the only game in town, regardless of how amazing you think your property is. Tenants typically have options. So
it's a free market.
We want to earn your business. We want to earn you being a tenant in our building. And so that relationship and that reputation is really, really important to us. And by the way, it's not to say we fire clients too. Not every client, just like not every landlord is the right thing to have for yourself. So sometimes the best relationships you can have are the ones you terminate, because it just isn't going the right way. I mean,
for whatever reason, there's something that doesn't click.
Right. It could be the fact that they are complete time wasters. And honestly, that's all we have in life is time. And so if you have somebody just wasting time and you're constantly fighting an uphill battle, sometimes it's better just to get rid of that commission, get rid of that property management fee. It's just so much easier and less brain drain, because we just mentioned it. Out of 300 or 400 tenants, we have 5 to 10 that are problematic. Well, guess what? Out of maybe 50 property management relationships, Well, there's probably only one or two that you really you shouldn't even have them. They're so not positive for your business.
Yeah, they take up 90% of your time.
Right.
And a lot of times what you're trying to do is you really are trying to do a very positive thing for that individual, i.e. bring them a good return on investment. But a lot of times there's so much time that's wasted on activities that aren't actually yielding that. And eventually it doesn't yield fruit for whatever reason.
Right.
There's miscommunication. They're not bad people. It just doesn't work well. And it may work well with the neighbor. It may work well with another person, but for whatever reason, not every relationship needs to be a positive one with you and with that person. It's just like same thing with vendors. A lot of times I'll refer vendors out to friends that go, hey, do you have someone who can help me paint a house? Here, this person works really well with me, but they may not work well with me. So, and vice versa.
So some tactical ways that you can, work on with your tenants to build relationships. Obviously, we talked a lot about communication with the tenant, but there's nonverbal communication. Some of that might be you're doing property inspections on a regular basis. You're communicating. Let's say that there is a retrofit plan for the building, inside, outside, whether you're going to paint the building, you're going to do an upgrade. You're communicating with the tenant about what's going on. You might add value in Florida, we have hurricane preparedness. I know you want to talk about at least something that you guys do a really good job of with letting all the tenants know what's going on, how they can be prepared.
Yeah, I think, and as we were setting this up, I was like, we probably need to do a whole preparedness episode.
Sure.
But yeah, communicating, I mean, you're probably going to hear me say that for the rest of my life. We like to do a first day of the season email blast out, and we'll do it on social, but we'll say, hey, get prepared because the season does have a bell curve. So we like to get one out right away at the beginning of the season. And then we'll also send out another notification, with some checklists and things of that nature, what you should be checking. How do you get prepared? Know your evacuation routes.
And not just for their building that they're leasing from us, but for their home. And because people live in other places, you should always be prepared with your vehicle kits and stuff like that.
And that's a great point. Well, now I feel like I'm just going to go into all the, we'll come back.
We'll do that a different.
We'll do that.
We're just talking about in general.
Yeah. But communicating that. And
talk about the bug season.
Yeah. Same thing. We have a termite swarm season, right? I mean, of course you have heightened peak season of insects anyways, but that one really does freak people out. So we'll send out an email blast.
We let them know in advance. Hey, just so you know,
correct.
In the next few weeks, we expect termite swarms. What does that look like? You're going to see a bunch of I always call them
wings. Yeah.
The little wings and it's completely normal. It's completely expected. Nothing's happening. It's just,
but to the unknown, it can seem like Armageddon. I mean,
it could be a little off-putting. My wife always freaks out. I was like, babe, no, it's totally fine. We expected this.
We turn off all the lights.
So we turn off the lights because they
hide in the darkness. Danielle's like, I hate this season. I hate this season so much because she's like, I go turn off all the lights, babe. Don't go anywhere. So, but the one that you did touch on that is I think something it's not always relevant, but it's a lot of times relevant for us and this is when they'll probably see you or I or whatever, both the most frequent is the improvement phase of the property. Like you said, going around sharing the building improvements. It's something that, we typically have a high level of excitement about. And the tenants do too. So I think that's probably why we do it so much, but going around, I mean, we're sitting here in the front conference room and one of the tenants comes by to get some more key fobs. I'm like, oh my God, stop and look at the TV. I'll cast up the design plan of the common area that we're getting ready to do. And she's super excited.
Right.
It's just
people love that. They love to see that their space is going to evolve and be something else. And then I just want to finish up with the little things in life, the little details, maybe remembering somebody's birthday or their anniversary, or if their kids selling Girl Scout cookies or something, just participating in those little things in their life is actually meaningful and matters, right? It's outside of the work world. It's the human side of what we do. And you're probably already that way in your life, but don't let it just be with your friend group. Have it be with the people that are also in your work life as well.
Yeah, your business partner. Yes, celebrate that. Those things. And what we're trying to do now is, at least recently, is promote on social media if they are doing those kind of events. If they're doing something unique for their business, there's no reason not to promote it. You can be the big advocate for them because, right, their success is your success. So there's no reason not to join in that, or the other things, the move-in anniversaries, things like that.
Right.
Because we've done it, like you said, the one building, but we've done it at other buildings where we've taken over management. And at the year anniversary, we'll have a nice little party there, and they typically like it, a lot.
Well, if you like today's episode, we ask that you like it, share it, follow us. All of that, it becomes meaningful. And that wraps up another episode of the Blue Dirt Podcast, where even idiots can make a killing in commercial real estate.
That's right.
That's a wrap for this episode of Blue Dirt. We're here to help you build smarter, invest wiser, and create long-term value in commercial real estate, one solid foundation at a time. If you found today's insights useful, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you know somebody who could benefit from these discussions, share Blue Dirt with them. Got questions or topics you'd like us to cover? Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep digging deep, stay sharp, and remember, real value is built from the ground up. See you on the next episode.